This is the video lesson for Unit 6, Homework 6, Dot Plots and Measures of Central Tendency. The learning target for this lesson is, when given a set of data, I can calculate measures of central tendency. And when given a set of data, I can plot the information using a dot plot. Directions. Watch the video posted to Google Classroom. Follow along and complete the worksheet. Anything you see written on your screen, you should make sure to copy down onto your worksheet as well. Let's review some definitions. The mean is sometimes called the arithmetic mean. The mean means the average in the traditional sense of when you've used the word average before. So add up all the numbers and divide by the number of numbers. If that sounds confusing to you right now, you'll see a couple examples before the end of this video. The median is the middle of the numbers. So if we want to find the median, we need to arrange the numbers in order from least to greatest. The median is the number directly in the middle. If there's a tie, we'll take the average of the two middle numbers. The mode is the number that appears most frequently, or as I like to say, most often. And the reason I say most often is mode starts with MO, and so does most often. So if you can remember MO from most often, the mode is the number that appears that much. Sometimes there will be no mode. Sometimes there will be more than one mode. The range, you actually need to calculate the maximum and minimum in order to calculate the range. So let's define those first. The maximum is the largest number in the data set. And the minimum is the smallest number in the data set. Calculate the range. What I need to do is take the maximum minus the minimum. So the range represents how spread out the numbers are. Take a moment to pause the video so that you can copy down any of the information that you did not get. So all of the new information is in purple. Please pause the video and copy all of these definitions down right now. The last thing we need to define today is dot plot. A dot plot features a number line and dots to represent each data point. This will be clearer after we create our first dot plot, which we'll do as part of example 1. So take a look below at example number 1. Example 1. The ages of students in Mrs. Nichols' coding club are listed below. Calculate the measures of central tendency and create a dot plot to display your data. So here we've got a bunch of ages of students in my coding club. The easiest way to analyze this data is to put it in order from least to greatest. And when we do this, if there's a number that repeats, we're going to look at it multiple times. So let's look from least to greatest. Let's start with tens. I've got 1 10 and 2 tens total. So I'm going to do 10 and then 10 again. Next up, we've got 11s. It looks like I've got 1, 2, 3 11s. 1, 2, 3. After that, 12s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 students that are 12 years old. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next, 13s, I've got 1, 2, 3 students who are 13. And last but not least, 1 student who is 14. So there's my data just rearranged. Let's start with the easy ones. The maximum and minimum, those are my extremes, right? So my minimum is going to be 10. That's my smallest number or my youngest age. And my maximum is going to be 14. That's my biggest number. From that, I can calculate the range because the range is the distance between the biggest and the smallest numbers. So 14 minus 10 tells me that my range is 4. All right. I need to calculate the mean, median, and mode. Let's do that in this order. So take a moment to add up all these numbers. When I added these numbers, I got a sum of 178. To calculate the mean, I need to take 178 divided by however many numbers there were, or in this case, however many students there were in the coding club, which in this case looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So to find the mean or average age, I can take 178 divided by 15. When I do that, I get 11.86 with the 6 repeating. So that means the average student was almost 12 years old. But these are actually all ways of calculating the average, which is why I'm using this word mean instead of just calling it the average. Let's find the median. The median is going to be the middle number of this data set. So I know there are 15 entries total. 10 and 14 are on my extremes. And then if I pair my remaining entries off, whichever number is left in the end will be my median. So I'm pairing a small one with a large one until I get to the middle. And I actually could stop now, but to demonstrate I won't. But I could stop because all of my remaining numbers are 12. So my median is 12, that number in the middle. To find the mode, I need to find the number that appears most often. Now, you could look at this and say, well, it must be 12, but just to show you why, I'll say that there were 2 10s. There were 3 11s, so far, looking left to right, my mode has to be 11. There are more 11s than 10s. 12s, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 12s, and only 3 13s and 1 14. So since there are 6 12s, my mode is 12. So all of these numbers describe the data. That's why I have them. So my mean 11.87 represents that one way of saying the average age of the students is about 11.86 repeating, or 11.87, so almost 12. The median, another way of representing the average, says that the average age of the student is 12. The mode, saying the most common age of students, is also 12. So a good summary would be to say that most of the students in Coding Club are about 12 years old. The next thing I'm going to do is create a dot plot of this data. When I create a dot plot, I'm actually not going to include the mean, median, and mode, although you will be able to calculate that data from my dot plot. To create the dot plot, I'm using the raw data, or in other words, the data that I started with. Just like when I'm calculating mean, median, mode, and range, it's easiest, in my opinion, to use this data when it's arranged in order from least to greatest. So let's use the data that I have handwritten at the bottom rather than the data that was printed on your paper. To create a dot plot, I need to create a number line. So do your best to space the numbers equally. So I'm going 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and your goal is to spread those numbers as evenly as possible. To create your dot plot, what you need to do is put one dot on top of each of these numbers for every point. So for example, there are 2 10s, so 10 gets 2 dots. There are 3 11s, so 11 gets 3 dots. There are 6 12s, so 12 gets 6 dots. When you're done, your dot plot should look like this. At this point, if you're comfortable calculating mean, median, mode, maximum, minimum, and range, and with making dot plots on your own, you're welcome to complete the rest of this assignment on your own. If you're not sure how to do that, I'll do example 2 with you, but I'd still like you to try example 3 on your own. Example 2 says, Mrs. Nichols' baby has been waking up during the night. This is a true story. Over the past 2 weeks, Mrs. Nichols collected data on the number of times the baby wakes each night to see if there is a pattern. Her data is listed below. Calculate the measures of central tendency for the data and create a dot plot to display the data. So here are the number of times my wonderful baby has woken up during the night for the past 2 weeks. Before I get started, it will be most helpful to arrange this data in order from least to greatest. So I'll start by the wonderful nights where she wakes up 0 times. So it looks like that happened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, even though it really kind of felt like that never happened. So 5 times she did not wake up. Next up, nights where she only woke up once. 1, 2, 3 times she woke up once. After that, the time she woke up twice. 1, 2, 3 times she woke up twice. She woke up 3 times, twice. And one night she woke up 6 times. The problem said that this happened over the course of 2 weeks, so it would be good to double check that this represents 2 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 14 nights or 2 weeks. When I calculate my mean, I'm going to have to divide by 14 because we just decided that this represented 14 nights. So take a moment right now to add all of these data points up on your own, please. When I added all these data points, I got a sum of 21. So to calculate my mean, I'll take 21 divided by 14 total data points, which gave me 1.5. So on average, my daughter woke up 1.5 times every night. Now, that doesn't mean she woke up 1.5 times on any given night, right? Because you can't wake up 1.5 times. She either wakes up 1 time or 2 times, or in some cases, 6 times. But this is a way to represent the data on average of what is happening. Let's calculate the median and mode. The median is going to be the number that lies directly in the middle of this data. But take a look at what happens with this data set versus the other one. So 0 gets paired off with 6, 0 gets paired off with 3, 0 gets paired off with 3, 0 gets paired off with 2. We're looking for the number that lives in the middle of this data set. Now this one's easy because they're both ones. If they were different, what I'd have to do is I would have to take the average of them, or the mean of these two numbers, which, even though they're ones, I can do. I would take 1 plus 1 divided by 2, because there are 2 data points, and get 2 over 2. So my mean is still 1. Thus, the median of this data set is 1. So one way of describing the average of number of times she woke up in the night is 1. The next measure of central tendency that I need to calculate is the mode, or the number that appears most often. So the number that appears most often is 0. You'd think with stats like that, Mrs. Nichols would be better rested. So all 3 of these numbers so far are different ways of representing the average of this data. So most of the time, she wakes up 0 times during the night. However, when I look at more data points, we find that 1 or 1.5 might be a better way of representing the average of this data set. The minimum and maximum are pretty easy to find. The minimum is the lowest value, which is obviously 0, and the maximum is the highest value, which is 6. So to find the range, I'm going to take 6 minus 0 and get 6, meaning that the span of this data is 6. So the maximum and the minimum have a distance of 6 between them, which means that my dot plot, when I make it, will span from 0 to 6. So once you've calculated all 6 measures of central tendency, it's time to make our dot plot. So the numbers of times the baby might wake during the night are 0, 1, 2, 3, and then in the data, there are no 4s and 5s. But since I'm keeping a consistent scale, I still need to include 4 and 5 on my dot plot. So when she wakes up 0 times, that occurred 5 times. So 0 gets 5 dots. When she wakes up 1 time in the night, that happened 3 times. So 1 gets 3 dots. When she woke up twice in the night, that happened 3 times. So that also gets 3 dots. Waking up 3 times in the night happened twice. So that gets 2 dots. 4 and 5, that never happened. So those stay empty. But 6 gets 1 dot. So as you can see, the baby is more likely to not wake up in the night than to wake up a bunch of times. But sometimes she still wakes up during the night instead of not at all. We'll read example 3 together, but please finish it on your own. Example 3 says, your scores on your 10 most recent math assignments are listed below. All assignments were worth 5 points. Calculate the measures of central tendency for your data and create a dot plot to display your data. Please complete number 3 on right now.